every marketing tactic over time degrades, especially online, and it happens faster and faster. And the average amount of time that it takes for a strategy or tactic to get into a course is several years. If you sell something because you believe in it, not that you believe in it because you sell it, but the other way, you sell it because you believe in it, that you believe that your prospects would greatly benefit from the thing that you offer them, and your prospects are not, they're not buying, not all of them, then odds are it's because they haven't reached the same conclusions that you've reached. And the reason that you've reached the conclusions that you've reached is that you've had, certain experiences that have led you to that conclusion, whatever it is, whether you've learned certain things, noticed certain things, spoken to certain people, whatever it is, you didn't come to this belief out of nowhere. And so one way of looking at marketing is taking your prospects through an abbreviated, accelerated version of that so that they can come to the same conclusion. So that's like one thought that I've had ever since we had that conversation. And actually, I've used that when I'm teaching marketing sometimes to people who are brand new. Like, it's a good way for them to start thinking about it.
Yeah.
So that was like a point of reference. And then there was this second point of reference that I was listening to a Dan Kennedy program on coaching and consulting. And I'll never forget this because there was a product, right? And then there was like a series of 4 calls. And on one of the calls, someone asked a question. I was listening to a recorded version, so I wasn't live, right?
Yeah.
Someone asked a question that was the question that had I had the opportunity to ask, and had I asked a question, this would have been the question I asked. And the question was, I have no front-end products. I'm afraid of taking the material from my coaching program and putting them in my front-end products because I'm afraid I'll cannibalize my front-end product. I'll cannibalize my coaching program.
Yeah.
And I don't remember exactly how he worded the question, but that was the question. I do remember verbatim what Dan said because that kind of got seared in my mind. He just kind of, first he laughed at him. He's like, he chuckled, and then he said, "Bubba, you just don't get it." And then he said, "You put your best ideas in your front-end products, that's what's going to get them to want to join your coaching program." And so I had these 2 thoughts, right? Like that marketing is just taking people through an accelerated version of your own experience. And this other thing about that getting your best ideas in front of people is what gets people to want to join your coaching program. And so I just combined those 2, removed the idea of charging people for a front-end product, and decided to write a report that would literally give people a perspective of some of the things that I had experienced, that I noticed, that I believed that when other people saw it, they would feel that, oh, if I did that, my life would be easier and I would make more money. And so, like, by taking people through process maps, which nobody at that time had seen, and then showing them what swim lanes are and how like a process could be broken apart in my business that showed like the handoffs and when and who, and people would see that and say, wow, that would be a lot. If I had those, that would be a lot easier than the next thing. And so, like, after a couple of different experiences like that, having read the report, they would come to a conclusion that I came to, which was they'd be making more money if they understood business the way I did. And so that then led people to that epiphany. And it was one of the reasons why it went as viral as it did. It wasn't really something that I did, right? But like, it was that people found answers in it to problems that they were struggling with, and then passed it along to other people that they cared about. They didn't care about me. They cared about their friends, and they passed along the report because they thought it could help their friends. And so that really was, my hope was that I would get a dozen clients. I had no idea, right? Like,
yeah.
But, obviously it worked out a lot better than that.
I definitely resonate with that myself. Like in my business, the same thing. I always give people tons of free advice. And they're like, you could be charging a lot of money for this. I'm like, it's okay. We'll find another way to make money. There's all like, if you provide value, people are going to come back for stuff. So that's really like, obviously it was avant-garde when you did it, because back then, nobody was giving anything for free. It was like, you got to pay it for everything except porn memberships, because we were doing those for free for a couple of days.
It's like, if your top, it's like I do a live stream twice a week, and while I don't always know what I want to cover in any given week, I'm not concerned with sharing everything I know. Yeah. Like, if you're a true expert in your field, sharing stuff, like I'm always learning new stuff. And so whatever, I could share everything I know today, and in a week from now, there'll be stuff that I didn't know today, and so if you're an expert and you're always growing your field, it shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that actually takes me to my next question. It's good that you mentioned that point. So, you're loving to learn and kind of keep kind of abreast of everything new. Since you're teaching other gurus and you're kind of seeing all these people that are very successful in the business, what are like the top kind of habits and characteristics that somebody, that you've coached or that's in your circle that makes them successful? Like, I'm sure a lot of these people that you are in your circle have very common traits. What would you say they are?
Yeah, for sure. I would say that like a great portion of them have ADD, but I would say that like, when I started coaching, because I was the first or one of the first business coaches online, the field wasn't as well developed, I guess you could say, as it is now. And so when I started coaching, I was bringing a lot of material that at that time, I guess, was somewhat new to the entrepreneurial market. And so a lot of the stuff that I've taught has been like absorbed by the marketplace, I would say, right? Like, 15 years ago when I was teaching, like build a business around your strengths, that was something relatively new. That's not really anything new now. So I would say a lot of my ideas have kind of made it into the marketplace, but there are some that haven't. And some of the ones that haven't, I believe are at least as critical, if not more critical. So the first thing I would say is that one of the most common mistakes that entrepreneurs make across the board, whether they're my clients or someone else's, is that when they think about the business that they want to build and they're designing this business and they have this dream of this business, they often are not really dreaming about who they are as much as they're dreaming about some mythical version of themselves that they're then building a business around, like someone other than who they currently are. And that's a big mistake. And so where that tends to come up is when I'm talking to an entrepreneur and they feel like there's a problem with them, or that they're disappointing their business, or that they can't be motivated, or whatever it is. More often than not, it's because the business was designed not around who they really are, but who they would like to be. And so, that is a huge mistake. And, a book that came out like over a decade ago, it could be even a lot longer, I don't remember, but it was called Change or Die. That was the title. And it was written by a doctor and it was about like when someone is given that choice, like you either are going to die if you don't change. 90% don't change, they die. After the fourth bypass heart attack, and they're told like, look, you either have to get healthy or you're going to drop dead. 90% do drop dead. Wow. And that's just because personal change is really difficult. And you don't want to put your business success after some goal that's difficult to achieve. That just doesn't make any sense. And it's not a recipe for happiness either.
For sure.
So to give like more dimension to this, there are two examples from my own personal life that are the easiest to share, although I've worked with a ton of clients on this and I could share their stories, but I'd prefer not, just because, I don't necessarily want to advertise people's weaknesses. Yeah. But so two of the weaknesses I have, right, is that it's very I'm a perfectionist as relates to content or courses that I'm creating that I believe like will be long-term. And then it becomes like or even a presentation. For some reason, presentations for me, I never finish until like the exact last minute that I can actually physically finish. And sometimes that means like me walking to the stage with my laptop in my hand, like making the final change.
Wow.
And so like if you locked me in a hotel room for a month and told me to create a course, like I'd still be messing with it on day 30, like, and so knowing that about myself, that's going to be a challenge, right? And that we have to have courses though, dictated that like my marketing strategy would be one where like all the products I ever created, I created live. I sold it first, showed up where like, and coaching programs that I created, I actually sold it, delivered it live because it needed to be delivered live for me to hit the deadlines. And then it would be finished. And that's the only way I ever created it because I knew that another way would not work for me. Sometimes that was unpleasant, but we made it work as best and in certain ways better than other things could work because like that was the constraint that we had to kind of manage. Another one is that I'm not money motivated and like money is not the thing for me at all. And, once I have enough and my level of enough is not like disproportionate to what I make, it's much less than what I make. But in order for a business to be effective, the business better be about money. Like we have to make a profit, And so I could either try and change who I am, or I could just figure out another way. And so like, I haven't yet done it, but we're getting ready to, like with the current strategic profits. But before I sold strategic profits to Agora and before like all that, we always had a very aggressive profit sharing program. And I've had that in my other businesses before where like basically turning everyone on the team into someone who is, if they're money motivated, like they're, a meeting was once a week and my whole team was figuring out how we're going to maximize our profits this month. Because like I always paid monthly, like the profit sharing, like 1 month behind. And like, so my whole team would meet every Friday, look at the financials, figuring out like, who can we promote? What can we do? And I never even went to those meetings. But the team would take on that part because of like me recognizing that this is a weak point of myself. Like as it is as an entrepreneur, it's a weak point to not care about money, to not be money motivated. That's easily gotten around by figuring out some other way that the business needs to be money motivated without you being money motivated. But if you don't make that change, now it's like I have that weekly responsibility of looking at the financials and figuring out how we're going to maximize. And it's going to be something I don't enjoy, probably not going to do it as frequently as I need to. Yeah. And so it's going to be problematic. And so I would say of all the things that I've seen, that's probably the biggest mistake. And really, like in any area where you as the entrepreneur feel like you've disappointed or gotten in the way of or hampered the growth of your business, more often than not, it's about looking at who you are as a person. And is that really the best thing for you to be doing? Or is there another way for the business to get it done? Right? Like there is like on a very superficial level, right? Like you as the entrepreneur have a to-do list, but that doesn't mean that everything on that list is for you to do or the business to get done. And the more things on the list that you don't have to do, the better. And so understanding that and understanding that there are things that you should always do, and then there are things you should never do are critically important for an entrepreneur to know specifically about themselves and about what are those things. I would say that's probably the biggest thing of all the things.
Hope you found today's session valuable. If you have any questions for me or just want to connect, please feel free to visit my website, mariasparagis.com. That's mariasparagis.com. I'd love to hear what you're working on, so drop me a line on any hot button issues your business is experiencing. And remember, don't worry about failure. You only have to be right once.